Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Let's call the meeting to order. If you'd stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Alex, can you do a roll call for us?
Yes. Libby,
Here.
Fritz, here. Vanessa,
Here.
Ryan, here. Tanya.
Here. And we do have a quorum. I think we need to make an amendment here to the agenda tonight. We have on the new business, item number D, we need to remove that from the agenda. So I need a motion to approve it as with the change.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting agenda with the removal of item D on new business.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, new business. We have a special event request for Kammy's Cause. Chair,
Previous minute.
What?
You got to approve the previous minute.
hang on just one second. We need a motion to approve the previous minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's all yours.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Jared Heiner. Do I have to give my address or anything for this part?
No.
Okay. Here tonight to ask the town if it is okay that we host our Kammy's Cause Music Festival. We're going to do this Saturday event like we do every year and have for the past 3 years. That's going to be on August 24th. But this year, with it being the 20th Kammy's Cause, that's a pretty big deal for us. The fact that we've been doing this now for 20 years and just getting bigger and better every year. This past year was our biggest ever, largest by far fundraising. It was pretty incredible. So I feel like the town is really becoming aware and understanding what Kammy's Cause is, and the support's just been unreal. So for the 20th, and we'll see how it goes. It might be every year after, but I would like to expand this into Friday night, which would be August 23rd. The idea here is, kind of like an outpatient surgery. No open incisions, just kind of be in, be out. You guys barely even know we're there. Well, hopefully you know we're there because a bunch of people will be out on Main Street, but we're not looking to close down Main Street at all. The idea that we have, and we've been working with some of the businesses on Main Street as of so far, we've got about 10 to 12 that are interested in participating with us. I just want to bring a bunch of acoustic music and put it inside of these spots. Have some of these businesses that want to stay open until 9 or 10 o'clock on a Friday night for extra business. The idea for us is to do like a passport idea, and anybody that's coming to the Friday night event, it's your goal to get to all of these spots. So we're promoting local business by doing this, hopefully increasing some sales for those local businesses. Well, at the same time, I've got about 15 musicians just for Friday night already committed to this, which I was hoping you guys would say yes to it. But just showing you the interest is there, the participation is there. We might bring in some, I would say maybe some additional portalettes, not on the street, but like maybe off to the street. We'll find some place that we can put them where it's not really impeding any traffic, but just for that overflow. So it's not all on the businesses, maybe for that type of need. But we're not looking at shutting down anything, keeping Main Street, cars passing through, business as usual, keep it on the sidewalks and inside of the actual businesses. So here to request Friday, August 23rd with that Friday night Main Street idea, and Saturday, August 24th, which would be at Landmark. The only road closure we would need there would be Stat Street. That would be just during our event. And that's Stat from, I always forget, what's the angled one? Is that Noel? So from there to, and we go right to like the church parking lot. So we leave that alley open because people turn down those roads on accident. And it gives them a turnaround to get back out to Main Street to detour. And Mozzie's has always requested that we keep their alley open because of deliveries and whatnot. So we just want to be respectful. So we don't close Stat up at Main. We actually bring that back to that community church parking lot. So that's what we would be shutting down on Saturday. We would look to shut down those roads at probably about 6 a.m. and keep them shut down until we have everything out of the park, which is usually by midnight. So it's about that time that we're able to remove the barriers and allow traffic to proceed as normal, which I think it's better this year because, Pilgrim Pike's going both ways, right? So there's not as much traffic going down Stat like it was this past year. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a hindrance. But that is our proposal. It's what I'm asking of you. We might go till 10:30 this year. We usually try to be done around 10, but just putting it out there, might go to 10:30. And do you guys have any questions or reservations or anything for me?
What time are you going to start on Friday night then? Would
It's
you
going to be
say?
about 7
Six.
PM to 10 PM was the idea. And I think that, whether it's Fox Garden or if it's going to be Taxman or the VFW, we'll probably host kind of like an after event where I could put like another band maybe to play for like an hour, but inside of like the VFW or something. And again, keep them involved, and try to make these people some money as well. We do really well raising money for our cause, and we like to let other people get theirs as well.
I'm assuming we're still doing the ride that morning.
Yes, good call. Thank you, Chief. So the ride will take off, want to do the same thing, Main Street. So I think they just blocked it off temporarily. The registration started at 9 o'clock. Kickstands were up by 10, and they return at Stat where we already have blocked off. So we don't need additional closures for their return. Just the police escort, which thank you again for agreeing to. You guys are phenomenal. So that would be Cammy's ride, and they come back about 2:30 PM, typically 2:30, 2:45. It's 20th. Are you guys excited?
I think the Friday night thing's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too.
I hope it is, right? I hope
Right.
we get a lot of people out
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So the goal there is we're locking all of this down now. So that posters, signage, everything is going to be available way ahead of time. And even with the businesses that want to participate, I want to have custom posters in their windows for the month leading up to it that says who's playing at their spot and at what time. And that way we can actually have like maps and give things that people can hand out. We'll have one of our booths off to the side, maybe by the post office or something, to where people can get that literature and buy merch and donations. But then, I was going to have like musicians on the sidewalks at either end and then put people inside the businesses. I think that'd be cool.
Sounds really good.
Does anybody know what happened to the slow down signs that we used to put out for the cruise on Main?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we could
Yeah.
put those out, not.
There's gonna be a lot of foot
but
traffic.
Just to slow down that night. Yeah,
Mhm.
not that people are zooming through on Friday night, but yeah.
The more cautious, the better, right?
Yeah.
Especially now that their windows open outside, like the new windows in Fox Garden and
Yeah.
and the VFW, that'd be kind of cool with bands inside and
Just
windows
spilling out
out.
everywhere. That's the hope, a little Beale Street or something, just for a night, just walk down, there's music everywhere you turn.
Okay, I guess we need to make a motion then to approve the event request.
I'll make a motion to approve the Cammy's Cause event request for 8/23 and 8/24.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Real quick, Jared, do you need anything from us for Friday night besides those stand up on Main Street things? Or you can have a later, or you get with me later.
Yeah. Right now, that's the whole point. Like, it's not gonna cost us any money to do it
Right.
and you any money to man it or anything like that. So that's kind of our idea of Fridays, is self-sustaining. So if we think of something, absolutely, we'll have that conversation. And your presence is always welcome, right? Now on Saturday, maybe if I get the Twin Cats back, maybe you guys can show up and pretend to shut them down, because that's what used to happen back in the day. They'd get shut down every time.
Thanks, Jared. Okay, next we have INDOT.
Construction project manager with INDOT, and I have Brent is on the Zoom call today.
Okay.
State of Ohio. So give a little update. So we had the email that came out on State Road 67 project for the down by the diner, the entryway. We did not research that it is set to the plan. It does look a little funky the way the curb is because of the drop over there. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to let it sit, because you have an 11-foot lane, you have a 14-foot turn lane in the middle, and another 11-foot lane. So right now it's a little challenging when we look at it. So Don McGecky and I looked at it and said, we'll revisit it at the end of the project just to make sure it's safe down there on the side. I did talk to Bob a little bit about some of the things that we saw down there, what's going on. So,
Good, good.
Any questions? I mean, so far we haven't had any incidents down there. I know it's a little tight right now to make the turn, but because of that drop of 1.5 feet, it does look a little funny in there side, so.
Okay,
Cool.
good.
And then this morning, they started, so we started staging all the pipe and all the equipment, and tomorrow they start digging.
Wow.
Find out what's going on out there, so
Exciting.
Brian came out, gave Scott some information over there, and then Joe, you have the updated plans, so he can work off that in the red lines, and then start the installation process. Cool. Questions?
About the high curb, is it possible to like just paint it or just spray paint it a little so you can see it or?
Technically, we don't paint it. If that's something you guys want to do later, you can, but they did that down by Mr. Marble. We adjusted that over there. We didn't paint it, and I know the town didn't paint it, so I'm not sure, Joe, if you've got a standard on doing that.
Are we stuck with that height?
That's kind of my question. So it's not gonna
cut
get
it
changed till
down?
it's done?
If we could, so here's the thing, if we cut it down because of the transition comes down into the approach, that's a flat panel down there. So if we go back to the first panel and cut it and curve it down, potentially what'll happen is somebody will drive down the curb and get stuck on that. So it sits right now, the tire would bounce off of it on the side. If we go back to the second panel, which slopes down, they would be driving right across the sidewalk, all the way down.
It just looks like a hazard to
It
somebody's
does.
passing their door.
It does. But if you go down to E-Motors, we have the same situation down there. The way they-
Where
at E-Motors on the very end.
E-motors?
Yeah, on the backside.
So two problems.
Mhm.
The same, so both problems.
It's not a problem, it just looks funny, because most of the others, we go with a curve, because there's enough room. That one you can't on the side. It's set to the proper radius, which is 10 foot on the east side and 20 foot on the west side. How traffic's gonna come in. So again, when you have that turn lane in the middle, they'll be able to swing. So if trucks come there, you can swing out, there'll be plenty of room to navigate. You shouldn't be able to hit it.
So in the future, if somebody's car keeps rubbing on that,
Mhm.
can we as a town, we own the sidewalks or do you own the sidewalks?
You'll own all the sidewalks. And everything.
So when you're done, the sidewalks are gonna be ours to fix if there's issues like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Joe, you see any challenges with that?
Again, like I say, if you want to, look at it when a project's done, personally, I don't like the way it looks. I think
Right.
it looks, it just looks like there's potential for some problems.
Okay.
But
We'll look at it.
that's
but
just my opinion.
Again, the only other challenge would be these cars driving over that if we lower it any further. So that's something you gotta look at. Might have to put some more curb stops up there so they don't drive in that on the side.
I mean, we can readjust, we can revisit this in 2 and 3 and 4 years. If we still get people that are running over it and tearing up their car, then
Like I said,
we can come and as a council and make decisions.
we're in the final configuration where we look at it again. If there's been issues in that time, then we'll address it
Okay.
on the side, so. Cool. I think Greg's on.
And then for the milestone portion, can everybody hear me okay?
Barely.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Adam, can you turn that up?
For the milestone portion, we have started staging water line as of today. Beginning tomorrow, we're gonna start doing the actual 8-inch water line installation. We're gonna start at State Route 13 and head west. And then Tanya also asked a question today regarding the driveway at Mr. Fence's house at 401 Main Street, as well as the alley between Oak and Main Street. So right now, based on just current weather conditions, Milestone's planning on pouring all of that back in April. That will just allow us to have better weather conditions to pour back the concrete. Anybody have any questions about what we're doing?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have, sorry.
There's a question.
Yeah, you can, public comment.
At public comment at the end, you want to do it then? Is that okay? Next, we have council to consider amending the tax abatement restrictions for Debo Cook at 3299 West 1000 North to allow caliber collision. Adam?
Good evening. For the record,
I'm Adam Zaklikowski, the Planning Building Director for the town. Excuse me. For this item before you tonight, there was a request for Caliber Collision, which is a nationwide chain that recently received the special exception to locate from the Board of Zoning Appeals to locate at 3299 West 1000 North. The project was given, the building and the property was given a tax abatement back in 2022. And in order to ensure that there were good paying jobs that were housed in this facility, the town council adopted some basic parameters as part of that tax abatement. And it basically said that anything that's allowed in the current zoning district would classify for the abatement. Let me just pull that up. So it says specifically, any use that is permitted under current zoning and has related uses and businesses for a distribution, service industries such as HVAC, construction, mechanical, electrical services provided to residential included, manufacturing of any kind and assembly of any kind. So an auto repair or collision was not specifically mentioned for this particular or at that particular time. And so the petitioner is asking you tonight to at least allow for Caliber Collision to classify for that particular abatement. And they had provided some numbers on the wages and the number of employees that were there. And so at least from a staff perspective, my input is that I think they made a pretty compelling argument to consider this particular use for Caliber Collision under that umbrella. They have updated the SB1 form, which was the basic paperwork that was included. But beyond that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those. And I know the property owner and their representatives are available either in person or on Zoom. Thank you.
You want to say something? You have anything you want to say? I don't have any questions, but I don't know if anybody else does.
Not really.
Yeah.
We got the use of the building. And it's gonna have to build the rest of the building. It's critical to get that thing.
I think the wages are well in line with what we're looking for too, so I don't see any problem with it. Personally. Anybody else got questions?
I don't.
So I guess we need to have a motion, Alex.
Yes.
This would be a motion to amend the approved tax abatement restrictions previously made for the property at 3299 West 1000 North.
I'll make a motion to approve the tax abatement restrictions for Debo Cook, 1 LLC at 3299 West 1000 North to allow Caliber Collision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thanks, Paul. Okay. Next up, we have old business. Council to consider second reading or final reading of ordinance number 2023-12B regarding a rezone for residential 3.5 to residential rural at 9737 North Fortville Pike to allow horses on the property.
All right, so for this particular item, if you recall, back in December, you conducted first reading on this rezone proposal. And then it made its way to the Plan Commission and it was heard by the Plan Commission in January. And so I'm just gonna talk about a few excerpts from the Plan Commission presentation that are relevant to your decision here tonight. Okay. All right, so I won't rehash a lot of the things that were brought up at the first reading. What I will mention is if you're inclined to approve the rezone, there's some criteria under Indiana state law that you're asked to at least consider as part of your decision. So I want to go through each of those and then I'll explain what the Plan Commission had to say. So the first thing that you're asked to look at is this rezone consistent with the comprehensive plan? And so the answer, frankly, is no. The town of Fortville future growth concept map from March of 2016 identified this area as industrial. And then the 2017 South Madison TIF District Master Plan, which essentially is a comprehensive plan of its own, identified this area as open space. However, Mr. Marmion purchased the property in 2020 and utilized the existing residential zoning R3.5 to build his house. You can see here on the map from 2016 what the plan was in terms of this blue being industrial. And then in 2017, you can see a lot of you probably recall the South Madison TIF District master plan, and the particular parcel is basically open space. It could be, potentially a park that's obviously purchased from whoever owns the property at that point. But at least that was the plan. So moving right along, number two, is it consistent with the current conditions and the character of the current structures? Answer is yes, that there's a mismatch between the zoning of R3.5, which is intended for more suburban or urban uses, and the use of the property, which is more rural in nature. Third item is it consistent with the most desirable use of the land? Answer would be yes, that this rural property is privately owned and a home was built on the property. Fourth one is it consistent with the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction? The answer is yes. This is a petitioner request for rezone of a particular property and would have no negative impact on property values elsewhere in town because it simply aligns the zoning with the use of the property. Fifth item is it consistent with responsible growth and development? And the answer is yes. It's really the same response as with the previous evaluation item that we just went through. So I had a recommendation at the time that the Plan Commission grant a favorable recommendation to the council of the rezone. However, after some really good discussion by the Plan Commission, they rendered a negative or an unfavorable recommendation, and that's certified. It's in your packet there. After having that public hearing, it was by a 4-1 vote. And in their conditions or things that they asked you to consider is that they recommended seeking an exception to the town's animal control ordinance to be heard by the town council rather than going through the rezone process. And the commission recommends an exception with the following limitations: no more than 3 horses and no other livestock at this time. So basically, they propose that you scrap the rezone idea and go through the animal control ordinance, allow the 3 horses and no livestock. And then lastly, there should be in your packet a copy of this section 93.20 that did precede our zoning ordinance, but is still the law of the town on prohibiting different animals within the zoning district, including horses. But then there is a procedure by which you can provide an exception to that. And Mr. Marmion is here in the audience and I think can talk a little bit more about the request specifically. The only thing that I'll add is that there is a requirement in this animal control section of the town code that talks about that this would be a public hearing and that written notice would have to go out to nearby property owners, et cetera. To be clear, all that was done in preparation for the plan commission meeting, and it was specifically stated in the public hearing notice that the reason he was seeking the rezone was for the purposes to allow horses on the property. So lastly, at the plan commission meeting, I think Alex felt pretty comfortable with foregoing that requirement if you were to decide on that issue here today. So with that, I can defer it to Mr. Marmion to add a few for him to make his case. Thank you.
Could you step up to the mic?
Yeah. Our Zoom people can't hear you unless you're.
Yeah, I'm Clay Marmion, owner at 9737 North Fortville Pike. Just like Adam stated, the main purpose for the rezone application was for the ability to have horses on the property. I've got almost 7 acres. It's more of a rural estate, as he had stated before. The plan commission was kind of more weary on the fact that if it was a full rezone, that it could be filled with livestock completely, which is not the intent at all. It was more or less just to be able to have horses on the property if we wanted to. I have 2 young children. We have lots of room. So that was really the main objective.
Sure.
Was there any negative feedback from any nearby property owners or anything like that on the initial? No.
There was not. I think the only other thing that I can add to is that although it's not reflected in the certified document, a big part of the discussion that the plan commission had was they didn't like the idea of basically downzoning the property, although they were sympathetic to how he uses the property today. They frankly just didn't like that strategy and were concerned about what that could mean for zoning in that future corridor by going backwards in a sense to suit this particular property owner. That was a big part of the discussion.
Sure.
Currently, it's all crop land and whatnot all around me. So
Yeah, I don't have a problem with doing the exception myself, so. What would be the necessary, since we don't sign the motion here for the ordinance, how do we make the adjustment? Is that what this is?
Well, what I would recommend, and Alex can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would recommend that you probably deny the rezone to just clear that off the docket. And then secondly, if you're inclined to allow horses under the exception to the animal control ordinance, no more than 3, and no livestock, consistent with what the plan commission recommended, if you're inclined.
And procedurally for tonight, it takes a majority vote and then you would issue written findings of your decision of the exception under the animal control ordinance, which we could prepare and you could sign at the next meeting to make sure that it captures whatever vote you would have.
So-
Question time.
You have a question? Yeah.
Oh, right.
No, go ahead. After you.
How many horses do you want, sir?
I don't have any horses currently.
How many are you trying to have?
Oh, like we talked about, I mean, I don't necessarily think more
More
than
than 3.
3 would be there. I mean, that was kind of what the plan commission had said would be a good solid number. So I was okay with that.
Right, I wasn't sure what you meant by the plan commission. Were they concerned that you would try to, become a commercial operation? Or were they worried
I'm
about
not
the
really sure,
number?
to be honest with you. That was just one of the points that was brought up, that, as they kept calling it a regress on the zone, that with it being a rule that technically I would have that ability to, and we talked about possibly doing a clause if it was a rezone to say that that's not possible. So there was just kind of a, you know, back and forth, and we talked about, I'm not sure who it was on the plan commission, but somebody had asked what would be a good number as far as horses go to not overload it or anything, and kind of 3 was the number that got brought up.
And so the options here are to recommend either the rezone or the exception. Are those the two options?
Right, you could, there are a few different ways that you could achieve it. In theory, you could, if you were inclined, you could adopt the rezone just as is, as what he's asking for, without conditions. You could adopt the rezone with conditions, or you could deny the rezone altogether and go through this alternate route, which is a recommended way of doing it, is just to seek this approval under the animal control ordinance. But, or you could take no action. So there's we want to keep it as clear as possible, but you do have a bunch of different options.
And I think Adam touched on this earlier, and we had a lot of discussion about this during the plan commission public hearing. That under the town's animal control ordinance, only agricultural zoned parcels can have horses without having to go through the exception that we're talking about now, you know, the separate process. So I think even if you were to grant the rezone, my recommendation would still be for the council to consider having you know, this exception, since it is so broad under the animal control. There's an inconsistency under, as Adam said, the animal control ordinance that the town's had on the books since 2008, I think. And this is kind of one of those carryover provisions that we had when we adopted the county's zoning code, which was huge. And I think we've maybe identified an area that we might want to the next time we fine tune some of the provisions to bring that into line. So I think the way that the code stands now, Mr. Marmion would need the exception to the animal control ordinance, regardless of what you decided on the rezoning for the ask.
Could we have an opportunity to look at the zone descriptions again before we do anything? Before we pull the trigger on anything? Because I just looked at those zone descriptions not that long ago, but I wasn't looking at rural and agricultural.
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't have those in front of me, but I
Right.
can kind of paraphrase it. Residential 3.5, which he has right now, is basically a suburban or an urban district. So for example, most of the properties in the Old Town area are zoned R3.5, and that allows for single family residential. It also allows for duplexes as well. And then rural residential, we only have, I think, a couple of other properties. It hasn't been used that often, but the idea behind that is it is basically allows for a type of development pattern that Mr. Marmion has, where you might have a house on the property and you've got, you might have a farm animal or two, you may not, but it's more rural in nature. And then I would say that's the big distinction between those two zoning districts.
I still want to read it.
Okay.
Maybe I'll look it up. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to
Deny the rezone.
Yeah,
rezone.
is that what we need? We need a motion.
Either way, yeah, yeah.
It would technically, I think you would, if you want to accept the plan commission's recommendation, that would
I think
be
we
to
should.
deny the rezone. So I think the motion would be to accept the plan commission's recommendation. If you would like to not rezone the parcel, you can reject the plan commission's recommendation and rezone the parcel with no conditions, or reject the plan commission's recommendation and put conditions on the rezone that the council sees fit.
I think we should go with, I'm leaning towards the motion for to go along with the planning commission. To not rezone it and to do the exception.
You make the motion.
Do I need to make a motion? I make a motion to go along with the planning commission's decision and not rezone and go with the exception.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I oppose.
I oppose.
Just for the record, I don't think I have enough information in front of me to be able to vote on rezone or not rezone. I haven't read the descriptions. And I personally am not sure why horses would be limited to agricultural, because that's the one we didn't talk about. And I would think just all of common sense would tell me that rural wouldn't include horses. And I know that area. I walk down past there to get to church and it's rural down there. You're going into the country. So I don't know. So that's my input on that.
Okay, well, the motion does pass, so that would make it effective to deny the motion to accept the rezoning and to do the exception on our animal control ordinance to allow for not more than 3 horses. Well, I'm gonna say 4, no more than 4 horses and no other livestock.
Okay.
And then I guess we'll get something from Alex to sign that next week. Okay,
Was that part of the first package deal? That, I thought we were denying him rezoning completely.
yeah, we
voting-
were on the second vote for the zoning. So we denied the motion to approve the zoning
Okay,
Which I guess there can
And,
still be an
and grant,
exception.
and grant the exception.
and grant the exception the planning commission recommended.
Yeah, under the animal control ordinance.
Right. Was that confusing enough for you?
I think
confusing. So what do what we agree on?
with a combined motion.
Okay,
So
okay, I didn't hear the second portion
Accept
of
the
the,
plan commission's, what I typed in here, accept the plan commission's recommendation to deny the rezone, but to allow an exception to have horses under the animal control ordinance.
That's correct. That's what I
that could
intended
be a
with the
separate
motion. That's
variant,
correct.
okay. I gotcha.
So to put a bow on it, I'll prepare written findings that you can consider and fine tune if necessary and sign, so we put this one to rest at the next meeting.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
I wish I could buy my daughter some horses. Yeah.
Okay, so next up we have Department, Joe.
Okay, just a few items. I wanna let y'all know that Chris Hunter with our street and utility department has passed his pesticide applicators class, category 8. So he's now a licensed pesticide applicator for our mosquito fogging, so he can help us out with the mosquitoes when the time comes this summer. And then Ryan French has gotten his grade DSM certification for distribution certified operator. So I want to congratulate both of those guys for stepping up and doing that. I also want to let you know, it's on, I think we put it out today and it's on the website about 9-star. They're burying fiber optic all over town. So anything north of Broadway up to Michigan Street and it's like they're heading out Merrill Street. I still want to call it Southeastern or 238 there, but they're digging up in that area and everything's going to be underground that they're doing this year. There's a map that we, I think it was supposed to be put on our website today, but it was also sent, a link was sent via the text.
I saw it on
So it's one-
Facebook too.
Oh, is it good?
Mhm.
And I would encourage everybody, if they haven't already, to go out to the website and sign up for our text messaging. So when there's different things that go on in town, we can try to keep everybody informed the best we can as far as any of the happenings going on, and we can send you a text and you'll be in the know. So there's maps on there showing what's going on. So they will be doing some temporary road closures, maybe some flaggers going around some of the construction sites. Unfortunately, they're, digging and making a little bit of a mess, and they did get into one of our water mains about a week ago, and it had the guys out to about 10 o'clock at night fixing a 12-inch
That was
water.
Nine
main.
Star?
Busted.
Was it
I won't say it's Nine Star was a contractor that they hired, so I'm not gonna throw Nine Star under the bus, but it was it was a fiber line that was being installed. And the last thing is we are gonna try to start flushing hydrants toward the end of the week. The weather holds up, and we just feel like we need to get out and start moving some of that water as quick as we can and trying to clean some of that up.
How long does that take
So-
to hit all the hydrants?
That's a tricky question. Typically, when we flush hydrants, they usually go 5 minutes apiece. There's 550 hydrants. This year, what we're gonna do is we're gonna let the hydrants run till it clears up. So it may not be 5 minutes. It could be, some of them, if it's real bad area, it could be up to 40 minutes. So it could end up taking up to 3 months to get them all flushed. But we definitely want to get to the system, get them all flushed before the heavy irrigation season starts, and there's a lot more demand on the system. So. And other than that, that's all I have this evening, unless you've got something for me.
I don't.
Okay, thanks.
Adam?
Nothing for me at this point, unless you have any questions on anything.
Keith is not here. Does it look like? Patrick?
Okay, so last meeting, I told you I'd get you the quote for our yearly ammunition, which is above my spending limit. You have it says invoice, but it's really a quote from Fields because I haven't locked anything in yet. That's the only place currently that has ammunition in stock. Every other dealer that we've used out of Connecticut or Southern Indiana has nothing in stock, and they say it's 6 to 8 months before we could pick anything up to practice with or use. So I'm looking to see if you guys would approve that spending limit on that. There's some information on page 1 and 2 about anticipation of shortages and price increases, and a lot of ammunition companies were bought by a Czechoslovakian group this past year, plus the Hornady plant blew up, plus several of the United States ammunition makers, Federal, Winchester, Spear, have all been bought by a Czechoslovakian group, and it's all going to be moved over to the war efforts in Ukraine. So we're not going to see very much ammo, so I'm trying to stockpile what we have so we have enough to practice the next couple of years if it does come to the fact that we don't have enough, that we could, at least have our minimum training rounds that we need every year, and then have our duty rounds in preparation just in case we can't get to them. And it is within my line item of my budget of what that is set out for ammunition.
You want to go ahead and bring up that server since we're here.
Oh,
The cost for that.
we'll do that after we see what they say on this one.
Oh.
I have a couple things tonight.
Do we need a motion to
Yeah.
approve it?
Yeah, please.
I make a motion to approve the ammunition purchase. Looks like $10,310.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Next, I met with Nine Star today. Our police department server is separate from the town servers for obvious reasons of body cam and security and footage and things like that for body cam footage. They are going to send me an official quote to upgrade our server, but ours currently is like 8 or 9 years old and is putting our, what is that? Our IT insurance at a little bit higher rate. Because it's not as secure and it's not up to date as the towns. So I met with them. They're preparing a quote for me that'll get us up to date and everything we need, and kind of make some tweaks to some of our internal processes, but it's going to be upwards to anywhere between $8,000 and $10,000. So just preparing you for that. That'll be coming out of my equipment budget. There's money in there to do that, but that's something we need to get done because it'll help lower the town's insurance, and then it'll help us on the back end with some other things. So be prepared for that. And then last but not least, you have your 2023 annual report in front of you. I know it's thick. There's 33 pages for you guys to review. I gave it to you now, so next meeting, we can kind of go over the highlights of it. The couple big things that I saw from last year to this year, our calls for service increased. Last year we had 8,000, what was it? To find it here. 8,672 calls for service. This year we had 12,049, which is a 38.94% increase from 22 to 23. And then in 2021, we took 6113 calls for service. So we've almost doubled in 2 years the amount of calls the officers are taking out on the streets. But it details everything. It has all the information in there. If you look on page 3, at the bottom, kind of summarizes all the different things that we highlight. Weapons arrests. It's limited data strictly because we can't track possession of stolen firearms. It's not a CAD issue. It just says stolen property. So when we recover a stolen firearm, it's just going to show recovered stolen property. We did send 4 officers to a gun liaison training so we can start tracking that and getting it to the FBI to get more data and statistics, and then seeing if they were ever used in crimes. So that's something that we're working on, trying to get you some updated data and some better data so we can track it better. And then traffic stops. It was never really tracked, the amount of traffic stops in 21 or 22, but this year I have a total number of traffic stops. So that's kind of, I don't have a plus minus comparison there. So other than that, feel free to go through it. I'm open anytime. Give me a call. We can talk about it if you have anything specific you want to go over. I've included accident data. I've included all the revenue reports, the SWAT team, the FACT team. Really, I think I've covered about everything that is interesting in my eyes, but you guys might need something else. So give me a call and I can probably find that data somewhere. So, but that's there. And then I'd like to go over it a little more in depth at the next meeting, just to kind of to highlight and summarize for the community.
Sure.
That way everyone gets a full in-depth detail of what the PD's been doing over the past year.
That sounds good.
Seems like the only thing that I'm concerned with is the juvenile arrest jumped.
It did.
Insane.
Part of that is we have 3 officers at the schools. We have had some repeat multiple 4, 5, 6 times that we have to take a certain individual or 2 to juvenile, or at least send the paperwork down for some sort of court proceedings, or maybe to probation so they can get some assistance and some help somewhere. But we have to show that as a quote unquote arrest, because they did do something legally wrong, but we have to go through and we have to do all that. So
Okay.
that was shocking to me until I started looking at it and realized it
thank
was
you.
like a couple that we have dealt with over and over and over. And you know, with juveniles, we try to get them the services that they need, because sometimes they're not getting that from their parents or their community or other people involved with them. So for us, we can't just say, oh, little Johnny did something bad today, let's just go send him away. We
Right.
want to do the report, say it's going to be a juvenile arrest, even though it's not really a statute, you know, a criminal statute. It's something we can help them get the support services that they may need.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Other than that, I don't have anything unless you have something else for me.
How the accidents been on Broadway? Been good? Better?
Sergeant Archer, you're in the back. Anything new and exciting? Not really. I think we haven't really logged a whole lot in the month of January. I think last one I checked, we were up to 9, maybe for the month, but that's all over town. Last year we did 100 and what was it, 13, 19, 6? I don't remember. I've got so many numbers in my head today. 104 collisions last year. So if you do 9 a month, that averages out about what we did this past month.
Right.
Or this past year. So
Thanks, Patrick.
you're welcome.
Missy is not here. Alex, do you have anything for us?
I don't, unless you have questions for me.
This resolution amendment here that you give me, do we need to do something with that tonight?
It's not on the agenda, so.
we
I would
add it to
suggest,
next week?
Yeah, maybe add it to the next one and everyone
Okay.
can take a look at it. And if there are comments, edits, additions, subtractions, let me know and we can have it in shape to take it for the next meeting.
Sounds good. Public comment. Mr. Farrell. Here, please.
Good evening. I'm Bob Farrell, lifelong Fortville resident. I want to thank you all for taking your evening. I'll take as a little bit more time of it as I possibly can. I'm the one that brought up to your attention the two conditions in Fortville that I thought were imminently dangerous. One, and the greater danger of all of them, is the curb at the Madison Lofts Road over there. There is an actual blunt, sharp curb standing up there that somebody has already hit it once, you can see, but it's going to destroy somebody's tire and possibly their rim. If they hit it square enough, it's going to hurt them. To me, that's a Fortville thing. We've somehow inspected it. It got through inspection. I recommend that we go back out there and whatever we have to do, if all we have to do is just cone it so that people don't, mistake it for part of the, the road structure. The second is the two of the properties, the 418 East Broadway that you guys spoke of earlier with INDOT, and the address of 216 West Broadway. Both have elevated curbs, and I don't understand why. The standard curbs off the sidewalk seems like along that corridor is the edge of the sidewalk, which is about a 6-inch deep curb from the driveway side or from the parking side. And the curbs on those two properties are elevated to right at 11 inches. Some of them in one place, it is over 7 inches taller than the top of the sidewalk, which is unnecessary. It's not in fitting with anything else that's going on along the whole Broadway corridor. That's more of an aesthetic from your folks' position, but from my position, anybody that comes up and drives up to that, their car is not going to clear it. It's like a bumper for them, and nobody else along the Broadway corridor has that feature. And I don't think it's a good feature at all. I'd like to see it cut down. The dangerous feature is this chisel curb at the very opening. It's a 30-foot opening in front of the old hardware store. And it does have a 10-foot radius, which is the allowable radius. But located in the center of the radius, if you'll walk down there and see it, is a very pointed, high elevated curb. Like I just told you, the same curb. It flows all the way down, and the diner has had 2 people, customers, come in, and they said, "What was that noise?" And they said, "That was us driving over that curb, and it was a thunderous sound that they got." And they said, "We're not happy. What's going on?" So they say it's hurting business, that people are having difficulties getting in there. I spoke with Steve Lindley earlier, as he said, and he said it's something they're going to take up and consider at the end of the project. But accidents and tragedies don't have a calendar. They don't have to wait. If you really stop and think about it, that chisel in front of 418 East Broadway, somebody is going to go straight into it, or they're going to swipe the side of their car with it. Now, I just learned tonight, that is our sidewalk and our curb. It's gonna come to us at some point. Possibly, we hope not, but it could, and we don't get to determine the severity of it or the timing of it or anything. I recommend that if the engineering company and INDOT are satisfied with the resultant feature that they have there, that we, the town of Fortville, ask them for a release of liability, whatever that might look like. In other words, I'm saying, I'm not happy with it. It carries a liability with it. You're going to take it upon yourself. You're not going to hand it over to us. You give us a hold harmless clause that that's an acceptable feature, which I don't think anybody would agree that it's an acceptable feature to have a pointed piece like that right in a curve, in an outgoing side of the curve. So that's all. I just want to bring it to your attention. We got the locations there that really need,
Did they explain to you why Kevin Crotchfield's property and yours vary so much, even though the parking lot is the same height?
good question. I visited Steve in his office back in, don't hold me to this, early December. And I said, Steve, what is going on? You know, we've got the wedge down at 418, and what's the deal with the high curbs on these two properties? And he said, they were both made as a field decision. And I said, so you're telling me they're not on the print? And he said, you just heard me. I said, they are field-made decisions. And I said, so that's what you're saying. They don't match the print. And he said, we have the right, and I wish he was here, you know, to talk with, you know, to answer and clarify anything that I misstate. He said, we have the right and the obligation when we see an improvement or a change that needs to be made to make it on the fly, on the spot. It's a field-made decision. And that was his answer. He said, raising that up, we made that decision. Same way down at 418, raise that up. Just go down and take a look at it. It's almost bizarre. You know, you see Kevin Crotchfeld's old auto dealership is just where it needs to be, right at the top of the sidewalk. And then you come to the very next property, which is right now occupied by a Milestone, 216 West Broadway. And then you go to 418, same thing. You just see nothing, and then you see this extremely elevated curb. That elevated curb comes down to the west and then makes a return. Then that return feature is just, I doubt that it's on any approved building, you know, construction.
Is that in writing anywhere that they can make a field judgment, even though they're not engineered? They're not engineers or safety?
To deviate from the print, you mean?
Yeah.
It sounds like normal. It wouldn't be unusual. I mean, I think they would have the discretion to do that. If it's in writing, I don't know.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll
Okay.
look into that, because you can't deviate from the contract just because you feel that.
I'd like to see some alternative options too, because I don't like it either.
I think what they're thinking is once they open that center lane, there's more of an opportunity for the cars to turn one way or the other. So they're going to have more room to manipulate. I think that's
Tanya,
the way they're looking
Totally
at it. Yeah.
agree with
yeah.
you. That opening that up is going to reduce the number of accidents. But the one that we don't want is where somebody's coming eastward and they don't make the turn into the Broadway diner, the Broadway Harbor Store, and they meet that chisel. And that's the one we have to worry about.
I don't see any reason why anybody can't make a right-hand turn going east off of that into that opening.
One thing.
It's on the west, it's on the opposite
It's
side.
on the east side.
It's on the east side, but it's the opposite side of where they're
Well,
turning.
People drive across it now.
Well, people do.
I think
People do what people do,
We
right?
gotta look out for them.
Right out of.
If turning out
I
of the
think
diner
I think
might
it's
be
a
the
evening
concern.
Diner thing, and I think I've seen tire rubber on it. as
Yeah,
I was
it's
jogging across
already,
there.
people have curbed it already. They're curbing it, yeah,
Yeah.
just like they would a curb.
I don't see why it can be rounded.
I don't see why.
Maybe not lowered, but rounded at least.
That's it.
Why does it have to even be there?
It just needs to be.
Well, I mean, I think it might prevent people from driving
Getting off side.
But I can
Okay.
see how.
I ask that,
sharp
that you
edge.
consider getting us a hold harmless. It's our sidewalk. They built it.
Not ours yet till the project's over, then it's ours.
So is there, you have to step up onto that sidewalk from, like if you're crossing the street or it doesn't have a,
No, it's the
Up to the
sidewalk.
sidewalk's just got a regular 6-inch curb on it.
Curb to the sidewalk, kind of. Think,
Okay.
by the pictures.
Anybody has any questions about it? I'm more than happy to.
I have questions because we've got 6 different heights all along that. It's up and down. There's no rhyme or reason for a lot of what they're doing out there. And they're making decisions without even checking with engineers first before they do it.
A lot of those curbs, if I'm gonna call it a curb, it's really not the curb, but it's what keeps cars from rolling off the parking lot into the sidewalk, into the street. So where you see the ones with the parking lots, your place, both your places actually have parking lots in the front. I don't know why there's not one at Crotchfield's place. I don't know that, but
Yeah.
for those I can see why they would put a wall like that there so that they're not able to drive off into the sidewalk. That makes sense to me. It might not be uniform, but they put a retaining wall around the real estate there at Main Street, Maple.
Right,
You know,
but
so I mean, because they took out a retaining wall,
Well,
but
that
Why
must
doesn't
be- Why
Kevin
didn't they
have
do it
that?
at Kevin Crotchfield?
I don't know.
That's-
I just said that. I don't really know.
That's right behind your place.
The issue is that it has a pointy edge.
That's
And-
my issue,
and
is the
at-
pointy edge.
And at one of the meetings with INDOT, I had questioned something that they did down by Garden Street. I'd questioned something, you know, the way something turned out down by Garden Street and INDOT had said it was done in accordance with the design. The design was made by engineers. The design is compliant with the standards. So therefore, the results must be compliant, right? So that's fine. And I said, well, okay, you know, I guess if I were really curious, I could go look into the standards to see what that's about. But the issue here is if designs are inherently compliant, and then if you deviate from the design, then are you still compliant or not? And typically with government work, if you're going to deviate from something, there needs to be a written explanation of the deviation. And so, you know, if they don't have that, you know, if we don't have that to see, then it's really hard to tell. You know, is it still meeting the intent? Right?
Yes, yeah. Well, I think the issue here is public safety. I think somebody can get hurt, and if they don't hurt themselves, they're gonna hurt their vehicle. And God forbid they hurt themselves or passengers with them. I think it's just a matter of time, and I think it's avoidable, especially this one, the one at 418, and especially over at Madison Loss. That one has to be fixed. Right. So anyway, thank you all so much.
You say they agreed to fix that one already? Joe, did you tell me that they agreed to fix that one already, the one at Madison Loft? Is that something that?
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other public comment? Town council comments.
you start with me? Sure. I just wanted to let you guys know that, I had called a meeting of, community leaders of like the library and the schools, to talk about the eclipse that's coming. We know that Denver's has glasses. He let us know that last week or last meeting. He can't hear me. And, I'm trying to be funny and you're not listening.
Well, I think the problem is we need a speaker. Yeah.
Right in your ear.
There, we got all the speakers right there, and all speakers there.
And it's
And
soft
just,
sound.
I
It
know
was-
people, they talk like this. Talk
Anyway,
soft and-
so to our lovely gatherers here today, if you didn't know, there's an eclipse coming. And the fire department put the fear of God in me anyway, not to leave my house that day. So if you haven't been paying attention, our community, I think, is going to be putting out some emails or info about the eclipse. It's April 8th, in case you didn't know. But get to Denver's and get your glasses. Is that a good plug? There you
Well,
go.
the first 200 people can get solar glasses. After that, you're on your own. But we already have over 100 reservations for that day.
Well, that's great.
You probably gladly order more glasses if you had to.
I
If it was
might-
more than
I will.
200, I think
Yeah,
you
I-
would.
Yeah, so anyway, we're not doing anything in our community just to keep our roads clear, but we're expecting lots of people in Hancock County. So if you don't have to be out on that day, don't be out. Just don't be out.
The country's gonna shut down.
Country's gonna shut down. We're gonna run out of water, gas, money.
Do you remember
Food.
Y2K?
Stock up.
I think we have a meeting scheduled next week, so after that, they'll probably release some stuff to the public, more details, and I think already the county has put out some information too regarding what you should look for and not look for.
And don't look at the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's all I've got.
I don't have anything.
I have nothing.
I actually, going back to the INDOT topic, I wanted to make a motion that the person who asked the question should have an opportunity to respond to INDOT's response to their question.
Well, I think they
leave.
set it up to where you send in the email questions to the website and then they answer them that next one. So that way they have time to research their answers.
Right, but if they come in and give an answer, and if the person who asked the question doesn't, find that satisfactory as a follow-up question, shouldn't they have an opportunity just at least to respond to the answer before they go? Because I was actually, I was gonna ask if Mr. Farrell had a question when they were here, but I don't know if that was out of order, and I know there's public comment at the
That's
end.
probably the reason why we do it at the end, but I mean, it's
But
not.
they leave.
Yeah, but he did talk to them before the meeting. So Bob did talk to Steve. And I also told him that if there was questions about plans or drawings, that there would be a separate meeting with him personally with INDOT.
I think I'm not the best at Robert's rules, but when somebody usually comes up and they're talking, there's usually you can ask for public is there somebody public comment? But there again, I don't know Robert's rules, but to me, that's he should have been able to, when they got done speaking, somebody should be able to get up and talk about, so they're here to listen.
And I'm only suggesting just the person who asked the question, I'm not trying to say everybody hit INDOT with lots of questions, just if somebody posted a question and INDOT researched an answer and then came and gave an answer. Nevertheless, if the person has a follow-up question or further concern, shouldn't that be aired publicly for all of us to hear for our benefit? Because we're the ones who in the end have to make a decision or take action on something. Typically, like in a peer review, it's sort of an intimidation tactic to go talk about it privately before or after. You're supposed to socialize these things. So just, drawing from my line of work, that's why I'm suggesting it.
When we offered or asked them to come here, that was one of the part of the plan was for them to answer questions previously, not that they're not against standing here and answering them. I don't think they are, but what we had decided was the questions would be sent previously within the first 2 weeks and then they could answer them here. So they were well informed and knew what they were answering. So it wasn't, we didn't recommend them having back and forth conversation because we have a lot of things on the agenda. So it was one of the caveats of just having them come in here so that the community could see the face and know that they could ask questions to somebody. There's a place to go. So it wasn't designed to do back and forth, but obviously, you can do that. I can ask them if they choose to do that. I just don't, I think this is probably the first time, Bob, we've had somebody here that's actually asked a question and showed up at the meeting. So.
And they would forfeit, if they don't show up, if they're not here,
Yeah,
then they.
That's what I said. I mean, it's never happened. So.
Sure.
Sure, you sure can. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, my name's Adele Sold. I'm Director of Stakeholder Services at INDOT, so I'm here with Steve and Andy. Had a couple meetings with Tanya so far about how we could show up to these town council meetings and provide information to the public. So I don't think we'd have a problem with staying for public comment. I just think it hadn't, like Tanya said, come up before. And So I will say, if we want to do that, just give us a heads up, and I think Steve or Andy would be happy to stay, myself too, although I am not the expert on the plans. I'm the wrong person to ask. But this is also something that's a little bit outside the norm for INDOT. So if you know, we have projects all across the state in every city. So this is a little unique that we're coming to a Fortville Town Council. I do think it's gone very well. And I think Mr. Fence and Mr. Farrell, as you know, you can also reach out to INDOT customer service at INDOT for you. Those questions come back directly to, you'll go through a call center or the web comment form. Those comments do come back to my team and they go directly to the subject matter expert that they need to go to, and you will get either a written or phone call back with all the information you would need. So yes, if you'd like us to stay for public comment, I'm sure we can arrange that with Steve and Andy next time. And I can speak a little bit to the contracting side of things you were discussing earlier. So with a lot of our transportation contacts, and don't hold me to this, I would actually need to go back and research this a little bit more. We can make changes to the contracts as they're happening in like process or production. Generally, I believe there are change orders submitted for those. I think they go back into either the environmental document or something like that. I've been trying to take notes tonight with these questions, and I can try to get those answers and send them to Tanya as well.
My question is, well, what gives them the qualifications to change the project? Do they have engineering degrees?
Yes.
Do they have
Yes,
all this?
so I am not sure about Steve off the top of my head, but Andy, who is back here, yes. There are area engineers that supervise every project. And yes, there are a litany of transportation and civil engineers at INDOT. You have to have engineering review on these contracts for transportation. And like I said, also, as you guys asked a little bit about why, if something is changed, how it could still be compliant. Well, those design standards aren't held to just one thing. So you can change things and it can still be in compliance with design standards. And like I said, oftentimes there are change orders submitted, they are reviewed by the engineers, make sure that any changes that are submitted are in compliance still. And you'll actually find that's a very common practice with transportation construction projects. There are changes that happen in every project. This also happens with civil engineering and like building construction. You will find things along the way that the original plans, no matter how much prep you do, things will have to change, and oftentimes can change in the field or on the fly. And like I said, don't hold me to that. I do need to go back and research. Some of my legal knowledge is a little outdated on this. I've been out of practice for a little bit, but I can definitely get that information and go back to those things. So, and I do have the law degree and a little bit of legal experience too. So that's why I'm going out on a limb and speaking to that, but I've been out of practice for a little bit. So, so yes, if you have any questions that I can try to answer, I will. Like I said, I am not an engineer though, so I would not be the best person to ask about some of those specifics.
I don't agree with especially the Crotchfeld property and Bob Barrow's property. Those are properties right next to each other. And they basically just built a curb really high on Bob's, and it just slopes right off, and Kevin's is straight. So I'm trying to figure out what kind of on the fly decision could that have been?
I think on the fly is a little. I think on the fly is maybe not the right term to use for that. In the field, changes are not just a decision that's made.
By one person.
Necessarily, and not, yes, as Tanya said, not by one person. But yes, I did take notes on some of the questions you asked. I think someone also asked the State Road 67 email about that curb. So I don't know if I saw that Steve responded yet, but if he didn't, we can.
Have you driven and looked at that when you drove in today?
I was here when it was already dark, so not that
Okay, all right.
specific portion.
Try to drive over here during the day and take a look at that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't go stealing my question, Fritz. All I was just to conclude on the topic about staying to public comment or not, I was just suggesting that if the person who asked the question is going to want to respond, to have an opportunity, wouldn't it be more efficient to do it right
I
when
think
they're
that's
here
fair.
talking.
There's not a problem
And
with
then they
that.
don't
Yeah, I
have to
think that's
wait, then
fair.
they don't have to wait all the way till public comment, and then
I
everybody
don't,
can
I don't
go.
think they knew that.
Yeah.
That.
They did know, and I just, that's the only reason why I didn't say that, because they had a chance to speak before the meeting and I saw them.
Yeah.
And Steve even said that they
and
did,
there's
so.
been- I know there's been a lot of communication between a few of you and our project team. So this is not a question that's come up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So yeah. Seeing nothing else, I will sit down.
Thank you so much for that explanation. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay. Need to have a motion to approve and sign vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve and sign vouchers.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:45.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming.